Good morning, students. I am Raman Gupta from Government College Bara, and in this video, we'll study a literary term named dramatic monologue, which is prescribed for our detailed study in our syllabus. So, let's start. What is dramatic monologue? Dramatic monologue is a type of poetry written in the form of a speech of an individual character. So, uh, if we see the literal meaning, mono means one and log is for speech or dialogue. Okay, log is for speech. So, when one speaks is called monologue, and dramatic monologue is a type of poetry written in the form of a speech of an individual character. M.H. Abrams notes the following three features of the dramatic monologue as it applies to poetry. There are three features told by M.H. Abrams. The first is the single person who is patently not the poet utters the speech that makes up the whole of the poem in a specific situation at a critical moment. The person should not be poet always. So, the next feature is this person addresses and interacts with one or more other people, but we know of the auditor's presence and what they say and do only from clues in the discourse of the single speaker. There is always a silent listener. This is also very important feature. The third one is the main principle controlling the poet's choice and formulation of what the lyric speaker says is to reveal to the reader in a way that enhances its interest that the speaker's temperament and character. So these are the features of dramatic monologue. Now let's see the types of dramatic monologue. One of the most important influences on the development of the dramatic monologue is romantic poetry. Dramatic monologues have been exercised in this poetry. However, the long personal lyrics typical of the Romantic period are not dramatic monologues in the sense that they do not, for the most part, imply a concentrated narrative. Poems such as William Wordsworth's Tintern Abbey and Percy Bysshe Shelley, P.B. Shelley's Mont Blanc. Mont Blanc. This is a French name, so we will pronounce it as Mont Blanc. To name two famous examples, offered a model of close psychological observation and philosophical or pseudo philosophical inquiry described in a specific setting. The conversation poems of Samuel Taylor Coleridge are perhaps a better precedent. The genre was also developed by Felicia Hemans and Letitia Elizabeth London, beginning in the latter's case with her long poem The Improvisatrice. The novel and plays have also been important influences on the dramatic monologue, particularly as a means of characterization. Dramatic monologues are a way of expressing the views of a character. They are a way of expressing the views of a character and offering the audience greater insight into that character's feelings. Dramatic monologues can also be used in novels to tell stories, as in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and to implicate the audience in moral judgments, as in Albert Camus' The Fall and Mohsin Hamid's The Reluctant Fundamentalist. So these were the types. Now the examples. The Victorian period represented the high point of the dramatic monologue in English poetry. Most of the dramatic monologues have been exercised in the Victorian period of English literature. Alfred Lord Tennyson's Ulysses. Tennyson's Ulysses is the best example. Published in 1842, has been called the first true dramatic monologue. After Ulysses, Tennyson's most famous efforts in this vein are Tithonus. Tithonus is also a great poem. The Lotus Eaters, which is in our syllabus also, students. The Lotus Eaters. This is also a dramatic monologue. And Saint Simon Stylites, all from the 1842 poems. Later monologues appear in other volumes, notably Idylls of the King. The next is Matthew Arnold's Dover Beach and stanzas from the Grand Chartreuse are famous semi-autobiographical monologues. The former usually regarded as the supreme expression of the growing scepticism of the mid-Victorian period, was published along with the later in 1867's New Poems. Robert Browning, the most famous name in writing dramatic monologues is Robert Browning, produced his most famous work in this form while My Last Duchess. We have read this poem, students. Can you recall My Last Duchess? We have read it already. In the most famous of his monologues, the form dominated his writing career. The Ring and the Book, Fra Lippo Lippi, Caliban upon Seteba, Soliloquy of the Spanish Cloister, and Porphyria's Lover, as well as the other poems in Men and Women, are just a handful of Browning's monologues. Other Victorian poets also used the form. Dante Gabriel Rossetti, D.Z. Rossetti, wrote several, including Jenny and the Blessed Damozel. The very famous poem, The Blessed Damozel, D.Z. Rossetti wrote in the memory of his beloved and wife, whom he loved a lot, and when she died, he almost lost his senses, but when he regained his senses, he wrote this poem in her memory, The Blessed Damozel. Christina Rossetti wrote a number including The Convent Threshold, Augusta Webster's A Castaway, Circe, and The Happiest Girl in the World, Amy Levy's Jen Tippe and A Minor Poet, and Felicia Hemans' Arabella Stewart and Properzia Rosie are all examples of this technique. Algernon Charles Swinburne's Hymns to Proserpine has been called a dramatic monologue, vaguely reminiscent of Browning's work. Some American poets have also written poems in the genre, famous examples including Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven and Sylvia Plath's Daddy. So these are the general things about dramatic monologue. Study it well, and if you find any problem, you can ask me. Thank you and have a nice day.